In 2014, I discovered Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and they are two of the most influential teachers whose ideas have influenced me and guided me on my spiritual journey. They were my first real deep dive into Eastern philosophy and spirituality. But there was one guy that kind of set the stage first and initiated what I would say was my initial awakening. And that was Eckhart Tolle. Now, I had read quotes by Eckhart Tolle. I'd heard the name, and I got the impression he was, sort of a new age, feel good, Oprah Winfrey type guy, which he is, But I didn't really have any strong thoughts on him. I just vaguely remember reading some of his quotes and thinking it just comes across as sort of, bland sentimentalism. But but then I read A New Earth, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I was very surprised that even though the book's message was very simple, and I'm a philosophy type person, I was really amazed that I really felt like reading this idea of separating yourself from thought and the difference between form and formlessness, that I felt that happening, that awareness arising, and I thought, this guy is legit, because he talks about that in the book, that you may be, feeling this experience as you read, like he was predicting it. And so his ideas must be really powerful if he has that confidence that he can say that. And not many books say, as you read this book, you're going to experience change. And so I thought, that's really valid. And I would still say that was an important stepping stone. But I moved on past him because I got the message, and a few years later, I went back and I was thinking about it, and I looked through the book, and I was like, man, like, if you take any like paragraph from this or quote, it's not very profound. There isn't that much depth to it. But sometimes simple truths are profound. So, I thought, well, maybe he's not as profound as I thought, but he's somewhere, he's kind of enlightened to some degree. I mean, if he was able to inspire that change in me. So anyway, a couple weeks ago, I discovered this other spiritual teacher who seemed really profound, and he made things really simple when it comes to meditation and spirituality. Sort of, transcending into the formlessness or whatever. And the idea that he had, that he expressed, was, you're making things too complicated. Awakening or enlightenment is very simple, and it has to happen naturally, and you can't force it. Even though he's explaining to you how to actually make it happen. Anyway, so I think that I got the impression that he was probably there was some Tibetan Buddhist psychology in there, I felt like, which I really, really identify with. And so I kind of started to take his message to heart, and I was trying to what I picked up from it, and I didn't realize this at first, was it was sort of a blame the victim thing. Like, you can become enlightened. if you really want to. It's just you're making things too complicated. So just stop thinking, stop. Don't even go there. Just be. And that started to make me feel like for a week or two, because I feel like I'm on the path, the spiritual path, and I started trying to put his ideas into practice. And I was up against this paradox where you have to let go of effort, but you have to make a choice to do that. So it made me feel sort of like guilty, like there's something wrong with me. So anyway, I happened to see a video by Eckhart Tolle, and I started watching a few more, and I was still believing this guy's name is Adyashanti. I remembered back to my conclusion that even if it seems overly simplistic, there's something legit about Eckhart Tolle. I mean, there's got to be, because he, inspired a change in me, and that's the path. Then that was the initiation into the path towards enlightenment or awakening, or whatever. And another light bulb went on in my head to counteract that first one that happened in 2014, which was, this guy is not only not enlightened, his ideas are absolute garbage. And not all, because he does address some concepts that do have the power to impact, and that has to do with form versus formlessness. And I realized that the reason that had the impact on me, one, was that there's truth to that, and the simplicity of the book explained it in a way that made sense. And it was like a aha moment, and to me at the time it was very profound. But it doesn't require true enlightenment to realize that. Now he claims that he is enlightened because it's become his way of being, but you can find it elsewhere. All he did was explain it in a way that made sense to me. So I want to make this video short, and I don't want to get into all of the specifics, because this is going to be a multi-part series, because there's a lot to go over. And basically, when I had that aha moment, it was a red pill moment. And why would I call it a red pill moment? Was I deeply involved with Eckhart Tolle, and I realized he's a cult member, and I wasted years of my life on? No. But it was a red pill moment because it taught me something about what enlightenment is and is not. And basically deconstructing the guy has offered me, I think, some wisdom to counteract a very subtle harm. And it's not a harm in like a Charles Manson type harm, or a Kenneth Copeland type harm, where they're just complete, just like evil, nefarious dudes. The harm doesn't really affect everybody. Probably most people that read it are like, oh, that's a cool idea. Okay, whatever. They don't take it very seriously. And why do I care so much? And the reason that I think I care about it is because I am on the spiritual path. I'm very, very deeply immersed in Eastern philosophy, religion, and meditation. And that's fundamental part of my identity. Like, it's not even like a true identity. Like when I used to be like a really gung-ho Christian, I was always about, my identity is in Christ and this is who I am, and all that. Buddhism is kind of the opposite of that. It's about losing your identity and being a nobody. And it's so if you call yourself a Buddhist, it's a practical term, but that kind of contradicts the idea of Buddhism. So it's not necessarily paradoxical. It's kind of paradoxical, but it's just an interesting sort of paradox that doesn't hurt my head. It's just a fascinating look at identity. So anyway, the reason I really took great satisfaction and relief in realizing this guy is an egomaniac. I really think so, because the more dramatic your claims are, the less room there is for gray in the middle. Like, if Tony Robbins doesn't claim to be enlightened. He claims to have wisdom, and he claims to have insight into people's lives, and some people get too attached to that. But if he gives out shitty advice, it doesn't negate, like, maybe some good advice he has elsewhere. And so there's that. So there's, because this is a topic that really is important to me. This is, and I think that it was a relief to realize that all of this, like, guilt and inferiority that was subtly implanted in my head about why I couldn't just become enlightened. That's all you have to do. Just become enlightened like him, and stop thinking about the future. So there's that. And so important topic to me. It's important because I see how it influences other people, and I would like to be able to offer my take on it to ward people away from the teachings that really could, impact somebody. I don't know any people that have been really impacted, but they're out there. And most of the influence is benign, but I want to give the other side of the thing, so that insidious, toxic, just flat out wrong message that convinces people to spiritually bypass and sort of fake enlightenment, because he doesn't offer the tools to become enlightened. He offers a tool to maybe make that initial awakening. But anything like he did with me, but anything past, it's that can ensnare people, because they take that and then they view him as this wise guru and believe all the other things he says. And so there's that. The other reason that I really liked coming to this conclusion is because I'm an idea person. I love deconstructing bad ideas, and how's it going? Good. I'm what's that? I do. Yeah, why did you see some of my paintings?
I just saw your is that canvas up there or something?
Oh yeah, like in the barn.
I mean above the hay bale.
Oh yeah. Oh sorry. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I'm just drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I did. We were up there with Ginda and John a while ago, and up in the corn crib, I saw some of your drawings.
Okay.
Or paintings, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, they look good.
Well, thanks. Yeah, maybe I'll show you some of my other ones. But yeah.
I like the scenery. You had some mountains and streams and everything else.
Yeah, I loved in landscapes.
You do. Are they all alive? Or you just do it off of a picture?
Most of my art I do from my head. I do like a lot of like mythical animals and just creatures and cartoons, just like really just stuff out of my head that are just just fun. Just a lot of characters and creatures I like to draw.
Nice. I do some art, but I've never been good at drawing.
Okay.
I do art of a different kind.
What kind of art?
Mostly carpentry and like doing intricate trim work and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, design on houses and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I love architecture. I love seeing like house designs and stuff.
Right on. Take it easy.
All right, you too. Anyway, where was I? There are so many bad ideas out there that I think that my ability to deconstruct a lot of bad ideas is very useful, and it's something that I like to do, and I have the ability to, that not everybody does, so it's good to be able to give input to ideas that people assume. And there's a lot of ideas out there that are not usually harmful, and they're just vague or they're not taken to heart. But sometimes ideas that get planted in somebody's head can have unforeseen consequences. And and of course, there's always the sort of maybe a little egotistical enjoyment of just roasting somebody. And it kind of feels good that I'm able to do that. But it's frustrating when other people don't see it, and suddenly you see it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to tell everybody. And I have to avoid that to not go on rants, because I go on rants about both stuff I love and stuff I hate, because I feel things very intensely. I'm a very emotional person, which can be detrimental if I get too passionate about things I don't like, because it ends up stressing me and making me miserable. And so then the other factor that makes me like to deconstruct ideas and people who present those ideas is that I have like anybody looked past some really damning flaws in certain people and belief systems and practices because I see good in it and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so I give things a pass. And that gives some validity to like the ideas that I like, even though they're and sometimes that's true. Like not all ideas are perfect. The more dramatic, extreme, or absolute a claim is, the more likely it's either all bullshit or not. Like people like Kenneth Copeland. I think he knows exactly what he's doing because he claims to be God's mouthpiece. If somebody claims to be God's mouthpiece and they give you their thoughts on their beliefs in God, they must really be God's mouthpiece, or they are, the mouthpiece of the devil. I don't really know how to. I'll have to go into that concept later, but somebody tells you the president of the United States, so you're either the president or they're not. If somebody says that they're an executive at the bank, well, maybe they were a vice executive and they only did it for a year. I don't know if that makes any sense, but Eckhart Tolle claims to be enlightened, and he doesn't just claim to be like enlightened to a certain degree or have wisdom. He claims to not have an ego at all. If somebody claims to not have an ego, for somebody to make that claim when they do have an ego means that they're an egomaniac. So that frustration at believing that Eckhart Tolle's ideas and this other guy's ideas were legit is what led me to sort of blame myself and feel more frustrated and think, wow, they know better than me because they've got a lot of wise ideas that are helpful, and that caused me the ideas of Eckhart Tolle and Adyashanti, this other guy, as well as a lot of like Eastern mystics and gurus. The harm, it's to some degree it's a more passive harm. It's not like he teaches things that are like, go just like Charles Manson telling his followers to go kill people. Yeah, that's a pretty horrific harm. The harm is that the lie of the message, I believe, ends up overshadowing the truth that is within the message. And the harm is not that it causes people to like go worship Satan or anything like that, or like join a cult. He comes across like a cult leader, but he's not. I wouldn't say that he's a true cult leader. So it's not like he's telling people go castrate yourself and commit suicide for him, or, you know, steals your wife and has a harem. The harm is that his message ends up convincing people that they are enlightened when they're not. If you believe that you've become enlightened because you believe what he says, and you're like, oh, I had a thought. I am not that thought. I am the formless consciousness or whatever. It stops. It's the passive harm is it stops people in their actual spiritual growth. The more active harm is that the belief that you've arrived at his version of awakening or enlightenment causes a massive ego buildup, and people unknowingly lie to themselves that they have now become enlightened, because he tells you enlightenment takes no work at all. Doesn't even require planning or discipline, or just like, because as soon as you start, wanting to plan or practice a discipline, then you're putting it off in the future, and now is all you have, so you just have to do it now. He claims it doesn't take any time at all. You can just stop identifying with your thoughts. And spiritual pride is the worst, one of the most toxic character flaws, because there's a lot of character flaws that, as long as you recognize that they're flaws, you're willing to change them if you can. But if you don't believe that you have any, then final note before I get into all of it, I just want to say that ego is not necessarily your friend, and ego can do a lot of harm when it rules your life, as I think is the case with 99% of people to varying degrees. And spiritual advancement, enlightenment, awakening, etc., do involve the death of the ego. Because of that, people come to the conclusion, as I have too, I think it's a beginner's mistake that I think pretty much everybody who actually starts on the path, is that because ego death is a positive thing, that you got to kill the ego. The ego is the bad guy. Problem is, when you have that mentality, ego is a shapeshifter. It morphs to more dramatic, to more subtle forms, and every time you think you figured it out, it takes on another form. And when you try to kill your ego, what happens is ego then takes on the form of the power that's killing the ego. It's like becoming proud that you're so humble, that sort of thing. So ego death is something that you have to allow to happen. Ego has to die on its own. And you can cooperate with that process, go along with it. Usually it requires suffering and so sometimes altered states, but according to Eckhart Tolle, it's just something you can just decide to do, even though it's something that you can't force. The implication is that you can just will it to happen. It does not work like that. It just does not. So I'll stop there. The next video I do deconstructing Eckert, I want to give some examples of why his ideas not go into the harm that they do people, but get into why his ideas are like childish, and everything about him is, and why everything about him is phony, and why any insight that the guy has is insight you can get anywhere else. The problem isn't that some of those insights aren't valid, it's that he basically says that's all there is. Like, he has the total essence. I mean, he's not denying the fact that you can find, spiritual ideas or practices elsewhere. Certainly can't do that because he's a New Age guru, and people that follow New Age gurus tend to follow a lot. He's very careful about his image and his influence. And just going to give some illustrations to look out for. I think that it's good to red pill. It's not just about Eckhart Tolle. I think that getting into the practice of being willing to actually deconstruct ideas and look for bad ones and see what the problem is something that I've become good at. The more a red pill concepts I red pill on, I feel like makes me a lot more aware of, well, here's I think the essence of it. Why I think that I red pilled on Eckhart Tolle is based on the red pilling of other ideas. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Alcoholics Anonymous, both, who I used to, think had some valid ideas and stuff. Not Neil deGrasse. It's obviously he does know a lot about the cosmos, but the problem with all three of these are they are all driven by ego, and once you pinpoint exactly the signs that's what it is, you see that it infects the whole belief system and ideas that these, personalities or constructs put forth. And it's just like, once you see it, you're like, holy shit, this is you know this permeates not every single aspect of them, but like everything that they stand for. I mean, another topic that I don't know if you call it red pilled if you never believed it, but to me, red pill is just the moment when you realize it's just all bullshit. You don't need to actually go through and counter all the ideas. Critical Race Series 1. The principles of ideology, ideology as in a political belief based on an ideology, not just a belief, but the toxicity of ideology, left-wing ideology, particularly right now. Eckhart Tolle, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and the frustrating thing is when I try to explain these things to people think I'm a little bit dramatic or extreme, and I don't think everybody should, but I think that I like deconstructing stuff. However, I've also realized I have to stop. I have to stop myself because it just gets me so angry. And just ends up stressing me out. CRT especially. So I'm going to get into why CRT is not something I even have to debunk. All the ideas, I just have to debunk the people behind it and why they even came to those conclusions. So anyway, topic right now is Eckhart Tolle. I'm going to get into Neil deGrasse Tyson, Alcoholics Anonymous. Got to take a break from that because it really pisses me off. And I will leave it there.